Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today I'm proud to bring you Herculean Physique with Ryan Foley. Greetings, Ryan. How are you?
I'm doing good, sir. It's good to talk to you again.
It's good to talk to you too, and I'm looking forward to hearing all about your new book.
Oh, thank you. Do we want to talk about that now, or should we shift that more towards the end of the show?
Whatever you feel more comfortable with.
Well, so for people that are brand new to the to this show, or people that have carried over from the previous incarnation, hi, my name is Ryan Foley. Like and subscribe. I'm an author, and very excited that just this past month, just a couple weeks ago, I went through and published my most recent book, which is available at Amazon.com. We'll see if we can get this to not blur. I'm sorry because I've got that set up with the, but so it's called Of the Lantern. Um, Boy, that is just not working out. Again, my selfie game is a little bit better. But if you go through and you look it up on Amazon.com, it's called Of the Lantern. It is a Halloween-based story. So if you can get it soon, the events of the story actually take place in October of 2025. So you can read it in real time if you want to get involved with the spooky season at the right amount of time. It's basically it's a story that goes through and tells the legend of why we go through and we put jack-o'-lanterns out on our porches on Halloween, the reason why we do that. And unfortunately, there is a city that goes through and passes an ordinance that bans the holiday for very tragic reasons. And as a result, they have opened the door to something unintended. And so now a small group of people have to get together to hopefully ward off this threat that is now looming upon the city due to unintended consequences. So it's a very fun book. I'm very proud of it. I think it's probably one of the most complete stories that I've ever written, and it's a one and done. So I have no plans for a sequel, and the book is there we go, 214 pages. It is a very easy read, so you can burn through it in a weekend. In the words of Elvira, this book is much like her clothes, short and easy to get out of. So you can jump in with it really fast and be back out. But it's a whole lot of fun. And so it's Hercules, you're very kind for letting me come on here and talk about this. I know people are jumping on here to learn about bodybuilding, but it's something that's very important in my life. I'm very excited for it. So thank you for letting me share that with the audience.
I'm very excited about it too, as people may or may not know. Initially, we didn't connect over bodybuilding. We connected over your graphic novels with the theme of Greek mythology, and we will be focusing on that again in the very near future. But you were my favorite Greek mythology graphic novelist.
Uh,
So
Thank you very much for that. It's a thing where whenever I got contracted to do that, and I promise we're going to get to bodybuilding, it was a thing where I wanted to go through and flex my creative muscles. And so by going through and tackling mythology as opposed to a novel like I had done previously for the company, which was War of the Worlds, it allowed me to stretch a little bit more creatively. And Of the Lantern is kind of along those same lines, where the legend of why we go through and we put these jack-o'-lanterns out, that's not my original story. It is a real myth, for lack of a better term. I know it's kind of an oxymoron there, but so the legend of why we go through and we put these out, and I just went through. I've loved that story for the longest time. You can tell on Halloween, whenever I go through and we decorate the Foley's foyer of fear. I love decorating for Halloween, and my kids, so we do it as a big family thing. Even though we're the only house in the cul-de-sac that decorates, but I absolutely love it. And so this is to, oh, well, I can't spoil the book as far as why we put those jack-lanterns out there. But if you read it, you'll learn the legend just adapted into to a new story.
that is amazing. We love Halloween here as well. It's my wedding anniversary as well as being our favorite holiday. And we always decorate, and our son dresses up when he gives out the candy to the trick-or-treaters, and my wife decorates every spare inch of the house with Halloween decorations. So we're very big on Halloween.
The only drawback to it is that I never know how many trick-or-treaters we're going to get. And
Right.
if you decorate the house up the way that we do, if you don't have candy, oh, you're getting toilet papered. So I have to have a lot of candy on hand. And so sometimes we tend to buy a little bit too much, which kind of counteracts against the whole bodybuilding lifestyle. But life's too short not to enjoy a Reese's every now and again.
Life is too short. And I've talked about that on this show and other shows that I also have cheats. I've managed to keep my blood lower than my doctor thought I would be able to do it, and I'm still aiming for lower still, but I still allow myself a couple of cheats a month. I've learned as long as you manage your cheats and they don't become compulsions, but you're in control of what you're cheating, you could enjoy just about anything. Eclairs, that's one of my favorite things to cheat on, and chocolate wine. I love chocolate wine.
All things in moderation. And so, so to get us started here, just as a quick aside, again, for everyone who's coming to the or is this a podcast, or I guess it's to the YouTube channel. So everyone who's coming to the YouTube show.
Right.
Okay, so for everyone who's coming over to the YouTube show, Hercules and I, we connected through bodybuilding, and connected through our shared love of Greek mythology and heroes and stories. And so this allowed us to go through and continue our conversation. So everything that we're talking about here is going to be anecdotal. I know sometimes that word has a little bit of a negative connotation to it, but so by anecdotal, what I say is this is just my personal experience in the gym. I can't guarantee that everything that we're going to talk about here is necessarily going to work for everyone. Just fitness doesn't work that way. So it's just us going through and sharing the stories of what has worked for us and sometimes what hasn't, in the hopes that maybe your journey will be a little bit shorter than mine. So that's the reason why I come through and I talk about this. And so before we get into the meat of a lot of stuff, one of the things that I wanted to bring back up from our last conversation. So I had just come off a little bit of a deload session. And so I went through and I started doing rowing as a way to go through and get my exercises kickstarted. And I had had a little bit of rowing experience in the past, and I didn't really care for it just because it was very difficult, and I wasn't good at it. And I think sometimes we have to go through and we have to face those fears and confront the things that we aren't good at, so that way we can go through and we can start to develop those skills. So, Hercules, whenever I talked with you, I said that I was doing like 5-minute sessions, because I had told myself, well, you could do anything for 5 minutes. And
Right.
so I would go through and I'd get my plate, like let the algorithm choose. So basically I would choose one song to go through and then let the algorithm choose the next one. And so I knew I just had to get through these 2 songs. But I had kind of, sometimes when you're on a journey for as long as I've been on, there are times where we just kind of forget things. And you think, man, how did I forget about this? But so in going through it and doing this experiment with these rowings, the plan was to try to get to 20 minutes. 20 minutes of rowing, just because I was inspired by John Cena, who is personally one of my heroes, and that's how he gets started with every exercise. So before he starts his day, so he's doing 20 minutes to get started. And so that seemed like a pretty lofty goal whenever I was struggling with 5 minutes. And so the plan was to go through and just add 30 seconds in every week. So I would go through and just slowly add these increments. But then getting back to what I had forgotten. So whenever you go through and you start a brand new exercise, you have to physically go through and teach your muscles what you want them to do. And that first initial thing, I always try to recommend, use the lightest weight possible, so that way you can teach your body what you want it to do. And then as you begin to develop, what you're going to see is, so let's say just random numbers. So you're starting with 5, and then you're going to slowly work your way up to 10. You're going to go to 15. And then all of a sudden you're going to start making jumps. And you're like, wait a minute, this is too easy. And suddenly you're jumping to 30. You've completely jumped over the 20s, because your body is starting to understand what it is you're asking it to do. And so on one of these days where I was just going to go up and do cardio, I said, let's just see. Let's see what we're capable of. And so then I started pushing through. And so now here I am talking to you a month later. And now I'm doing 20 minutes on the rowing machine
Congratulations. That is
just to
great.
get started. Thank you. I appreciate that. And it's so right now I'm in a little bit of, so it's 20 minutes worth of rowing, then it's 20 minutes worth of lifting weights. And then if I'm going to walk a mile, so again, I do steady state cardio. So if I'm doing 3 miles per hour, it takes me 20 minutes to walk a mile, but a 20-minute mile is still a mile. And so I'm kind of having to go through and juggle my workouts just a little bit. So I've got to find, you know, either a little bit more time to get there to spend some more time, which is a little bit difficult whenever I'm on a time crunch, say if it's a work day. But so it's getting that balance figured out. And in going through and doing that, in dedicating that 20 minutes to rowing, 20 minutes to lifting weights, and 20 minutes worth of cardio, I'm seeing the results. I'm seeing I track things on my Apple Watch, and there were times where, you know, I'd go through, I'd put in what I thought was some pretty decent work. And, you know, I come away from it and it's like, man, I've only burned like 400 calories. I've only burned, you know, 500 calories, which, you know, seems kind of low. But so now with this rowing, I've got the data backed up where it's like I'm hitting 600 calories by the end of my workout.
Oh,
I
wow.
mean,
That
yeah,
is,
pretty darn consistently.
yeah, that is fantastic.
So this is where so if you go to Anytime Fitness in Pryor, Oklahoma, and you're watching this video, oh, rowing's terrible. Don't do it, because I don't want to have to sit and wait in line to use the equipment. But for everyone else, man, yeah, it's incredibly, it's low impact. It is, and so again, whenever I talked to you last month, I was talking about, okay, so 5 minutes, and at the pace that I'm doing, it's about 30 reps per minute. And so I was like, and so my advocation, I'm not certain if that's a word, but it's so my advocation for rowing was, if you're doing this every single time, you're doing 150 reps if you do 5 minutes at 30 reps per minute. And if you do anything for 150 reps 7 days a week, you're going to see results. You're going to start to see these improvements. Well, so now I'm doing 600 reps to go through and to get started, you know. And so I'm starting to see, you know, like the veins are kind of starting to become a little bit more prominent in my forearms, and I'm definitely feeling it down in my love handle areas, where it feels like that area is really starting to trim up. And so this is kind of one of those things. I can't recommend it enough. Again, with it being low impact, and so it's not just cardio, it's cardiovascular, because you are working really hard. That heart rate is going, but you're also, you know, through throose movements, you're going through it, and you are doing resistance training. And I've even found that whenever I start to lag, or I can feel that fatigue beginning to set in, I'll just go through and change my grip, where I'll go from a pronated grip to a supinated grip, or, you know, or alternate even. And by going through and doing that, it's made a world of difference.
Yeah, I could tell from your forearms. This is very,
Thank you.
I could tell from your forearms that you know, you've experienced growth.
So the only what I haven't figured out though, and this is not a knock. So the brand that they have up there is called a Concept 2. And I went through and I looked up this thing online, because I'm considering, it's like, man, I'm enjoying this so much. Maybe it's time to get one of these things for my home. And so went to shopping around just to look at, to see what the price is. And for that Concept 2, they want $1,300, which seems a little expensive to me, because there are other versions that are out there and they're priced as low as $200. So there was a part of me saying, man, you know, I could go through and I could buy a new one of these every year for 7 years and still not spend as much money as this Concept 2. And the only thing that I can think of is that maybe it's got to be some sort of big, massive industrial grade, because it's designed for many people to be using it over and over and over again throughout the course of the day in a public gym. So I can't figure out why that price point is so expensive.
I could recommend a few things. Back when we lived in Pennsylvania and I had a huge basement and I had a gym in my home, a lot of the machines, I got them for practically nothing by going to Salvation Army or Goodwill, and also looking for like garage sales and things like that, and checking the local free cycle. And what happens with exercise equipment, even expensive exercise equipment, is people buy it intending to use it, and then it starts becoming a place to hang your laundry or other things, and then it's just in the way, and they want to get rid of it. They just want it out of the house, so they're willing to give it away. And I was able to get universal machines. I had three of them, and I had a leg press machine. I got the leg press machine for I think $5 because
Okay.
I recognized what it was, but it was disassembled in the Salvation Army. So $5 for a leg press machine, and I used that very well for all the time we had the house in Pennsylvania. But there are ways of getting this equipment much cheaper. Also, you have, in addition to this show, you have the Furion Strength, and you have the Phoenix Protocols. So you can ask a company to send you a sample for review.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And if you want to dedicate part or in its entirety in your show to occasionally reviewing a piece of equipment, that would be a valid show.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's something I'll definitely look into. I hadn't even considered that, but yeah, that's a really good idea.
Yeah, because I've gotten equipment. Sometimes they'll tell you no, or they'll tell you, whatever. But I found that just as often as not, they'll send it to you, and I uh, I used the equipment when it was sent over, and I did reviews, and I did all sorts of things to get the word out there. A lot of times, I wound up interviewing the inventor of the piece of equipment or the team that put it together, and I'll keep revisiting them even if I'm no longer actively using the machine. But I'll revisit them and give an opportunity to speak about what's new and exciting with the machine.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, I'll throw that in the idea file and see what we can do with that. And so just going through and making these small little changes, I think has gone through and it's done a world of good for me. And so now it's kind of become more. But uh, again, whenever you go through to get started, it's the same as anything. I that machine had kind of kicked my butt whenever I first used it. And I think that's where we have to be careful with the ego. We have to put the ego away. And sometimes it requires that hard work to go through and break through and become that stronger individual that we need to be. And so it's just going through and facing that fear and putting your head down and putting the work in. And if you do that on a long enough timeline, I think you can go through and you can bend certain things to your will in order to continue on that journey of self-improvement.
Oh, I agree with you.
So one of the things that I really wanted to talk to again, not that so let me put this delicately, but there are times where after I get done speaking with you, the fear kind of starts to creep in. Fear is not really the right word, but just what am I going to talk about this month? And so because I want to bring good information to people,
Right.
and so sometimes I go through and I find things, and then other times things go through and they tend to find me through whatever force you want to call it, but it stumbles across. And so one of the things that was explained to me, um, so the advice was don't shrink from the responsibility of inspiring people. And I think that that's something very important these days. But we have to be careful where we're getting our inspiration from. Only because, and you have to be willing to give yourself grace. And so, one of the things that the idea, the concept that I stumbled across was what they called capacity versus discipline. And so, I go to the gym every day. Or I would say probably 27 out of 30 days out of the month, I'm going to the gym. It is my safe space. it is where I'm able to go through and reset. And for an hour out of the day, the world just falls away. I go through, I block out everything, and it's just me versus the weight. And the weight doesn't care. Either you lift it or you don't. And so it is, it's my therapy. And I've found that there's a lot of other people out there who share this same mentality that I have. But so again, so we have, so it is capacity versus discipline. And it's important for people to realize and to give themselves grace. So 2.5 years ago, roughly 2.5 years ago, my company moved our corporate offices. And so I went from having a 24-minute commute to literally a commute that's less than 2 minutes.
Wow.
The only way I could have a shorter commute is if I worked at home. I mean, there is one stop sign between my house and the office. And in the small town that I live in, there's no such thing as traffic. So by doing this, I went through and I added 45 minutes to my day. And as Tony Stark taught us, there's no amount of money ever bought another second of time.
Right.
So, but there are some people out there who, man, it's hard. It's tough out there right now. And so there are some people out there and they're commuting an hour. Or I've got a friend of mine and she's like, oh man, I really want to get back in the gym. But she has a daughter that is, I think, like 14 months. So, and that requires a whole, a tremendous amount of energy. So I don't want people to feel bad if they can't go through and get to the gym every single day. Now, this is where you kind of have to go through and you have to make the decision, okay, well, what can I strip away from my life? Because the ultimate answer would be, okay, well, how much time are you spending on your phone? How much time are you scrolling? But if you're going through there and yeah, if that's where your time is getting eaten up in that time suck, okay, maybe it's time to go through and make a few changes. But so again, that capacity versus discipline. And so sometimes you have to go through it and restructure your life. But so like one of the worst pieces of advice that I ever got was this hustle culture that we're a part of. And you may have to stay up for 3 days in order to go through it and get all this work done. And I was like, that's not good advice to people, because if you become sleep deprived, you're not making the best decisions. You're not making the best calculations. And I experienced this in my own life because, again, I was so busy. I mean, I was editing right up until the point where I hit that publish button for that book. And I was like, I've got to do this and I've got to do this. And there were times where, and then I started thinking of a new story that I want to go through and write. And my body would betray me because I go and I'd get up and I'd go to the bathroom at 3:30 in the morning, come back, lay back down. And then it was like, I got to get back to sleep. I can't start thinking about that book. And so what I would do is, how do I solve this second act problem? And so in going through and doing all that sort of stuff, my sleep was getting compromised. And so then once you go through and your sleep becomes compromised, then it goes through and your workouts become compromised. And I completely understand. And these are like trying to figure out my second act problems on my next book. I understand is like the least problematic problems that are out there, because there's a lot of people out there who are struggling right now. And so now imagine if you have health issues or if you have family issues or relationship issues, all this sort of stuff, it can go through and it can compound upon you. And so what I don't want is for people to go through and beat themselves up just because someone's telling you, hey, you've got to get in the gym every day. Yeah, but we all have responsibilities. And so some people, it's not an issue of discipline of how come I can't get to the gym every day. It's not necessarily discipline. You may have the absolute best intentions, but if your capacity is diminished because life is coming along and smacking you around a little bit, the important thing is to not to go through and beat yourself up whenever you come across those lows. And so my question is to you, have you ever come across any of these lows? And if you have, how did you work your way out of them?
Um, I'm of the belief that you do what you can when you can, and as long as you're doing your best, then basically, uh, no one can ask anybody to do more than their best. So currently, my capacity is diminished because I have Parkinson's disease and because I have spinal arthritis. So I also have diabetes type 2, but that doesn't really, limit me in any, measurable way for most things. So that's basically a matter of watching my diet, and watching my diet involves watching my carbohydrate intake more than anything else. So it's like, okay, I can't do what I was doing before. I used to love lifting heavy. That was one of my passions. And right now, even if I had nothing else but the spinal arthritis, that becomes very problematic because sometimes it's difficult enough to walk with my spine straight. So I do what I can. I know that there are muscle control techniques to go back to the beginnings of the physical culture sport, pre-bodybuilding. And then there's isometrics, and then there's isotonics. And then you could do all sorts of workouts like with some equipment like hand grips or with dumbbells or barbells or kettlebells. So, and I like collecting these different things and playing with them. I like bodybuilding toys. So it's like, what can I do? So now, because of the Parkinson's disease, the more I exercise, the better it is. But some days I'm just bone tired. So I can't do the full routine that I'd set out, but I'm not going to just leave it and do nothing. So then I'll do what you suggested in terms of going with the lower weights and more repetitions. And I'm finding that I switched my whole workout now to incorporate that. Before I just tried it on my arms basically, but now I've switched my entire workout because it helps me. It gives me a better pump than dealing with heavier weights sometimes.
Wow. Okay. I mean, so that's very interesting. And so I think in that what we have to define, and so again, yes, I am a very big advocate. It feels like every time I've ever gotten hurt, it's always been through ego lifting. I feel like the form isn't quite as surgical as it should be, and so I'm a much greater advocate of lifting, I guess, what I would call manageable heavy. So where it's you're going to go through and you're going to work, but it's at a higher rep range. And I'm still not convinced that this isn't the superior way to go, just because the injury level is much lower. And but the difference is that I think you have to mentally convince yourself. You have to know. You have to really listen to your system to know what is actual failure and what constitutes failure. Because the idea is it's failure minus one. And as long as you're pushing yourself to the absolute limit, whether that takes you 20 reps to get there or 10 reps to get there, depending on how much weight you're doing. But just the whole trick is knowing when you are about to actually reach that critical failure where you can't do it anymore. So, what do you consider to be failure? What do you consider to be muscle failure? Is it a point where you just can't complete
Can't
an
do it
entire rep?
right. Yeah, that's how
Okay.
I look at it, where I can't do an entire rep. And it happens with like low poundages too. If you're doing like what I do now exactly is I'll start by just doing the movements for the exercise to feel my muscles, and I'll imagine that I'm using a weight. So I get a sense of my muscles and which ones are going to be in use for the exercise. Then I'll use a hand grip for tension, and I'll do the same exercise, do like 2 sets of that. Then I'll put ankle wrist weights on my hands. That adds 2.5 pounds, and I'll do it with the hand grips. And then I'll go to light kettlebells and dumbbells. So I'll start with like 2.5 pounds. I'll go to 5 pounds. I'll go to 8 pounds, and usually by the time I'm finished with the 8 pound sets, my arms, I can't do more, even 12 repetitions. Usually around 8 is when I'll start getting the burn. And then when I get up to 9, 10, I'm not able to lift it any further. So I know that I've gotten the burn for the excess. And before that, I used to take a lot of heavy lifting. Now, by trying your method and seeing what happens, I'm very happy with it. And I'll be using that exclusively now until my spine feels better and I'm able to lift heavier poundages again.
Sure. Boy, the other thing that I would try to implement. So what I've found with the rowing, um, there are a lot of times where I will row with my eyes closed because I don't want to look at the counter. I don't want to know how long I've been doing the exercise. And because sometimes if I can think about something else, and now granted, that's in something where I don't have to be mentally zoned in, it's I can kind of just kind of go through the motions without having to really pay that much attention. So that way I can kind of let my mind drift just a little bit. But so I'll go through and I'll start to figure out, okay, so I've got, so I'm a quarter of the way there. I'm halfway there. Okay, we're over at the halfway point. Now it's just all right. Now we're at, and sometimes it's as much as, I'm at 11/12, but just going to just keep pushing, keep pushing. But what I've found is, so whenever you're going through and you're counting your reps, do you ever go through an attempt to fool yourself where instead of, I'm not doing 20 of these things, I'm going to do 4 sets of 5. They're just going to be all lined up in a row. So instead of counting into the 13, 14, I'm just going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as a way to kind of trick my body into going, oh, yeah, we're just doing 5 more reps. This is all lightweight. We've only done 5
Yeah,
reps. This is lightweight.
I've done that. Yeah, just broken it down and looking for the total number, but breaking it down to tinier pieces. I do that occasionally. I don't do that every single workout, but I do that occasionally. I'll break it down and that's nothing, and I'm eager to stop resting and grab the next 5 or 6 reps. So yeah, I find that to be an effective technique.
And so it's just any of those little things that you can do, which again, I think that's where you do have to get clued in to your nervous system. You have to know how everything really truly feels. And so that way, so there's a great quote, man, I would butcher it here if I tried to recall it from memory, but I believe it's from George Patton. And Patton talks about how the body is, or the body follows the mind, and so the body's always tired. But if you in your mind tell your body we're going to keep going, we're going to keep going. And so I think there are times where the mind does have to override the body. And so again, you don't want to leave those reps on the table. You want to make sure that, so
Right.
if you really want to make it work, you do have to push yourself to what is actual failure. Maybe not what your body thinks is failure, but what your mind thinks is failure. So that way, I mean, so again, if you can go through and you can change up that count scheme where we're only going to count to 5 and we're going to do that 4 times, that, but if you're like, oh, I would have given up around 15 or 16, yeah, but you could actually get to 20 if you really pushed hard. And so that's where I think you just have to find that balance, that between what the body is telling you, again, very important to listen to, but then your mind sometimes can allow you to get a few extra reps too.
I do that sometimes with my dynamic tension type exercises, my isometrics and my isotonics, where I'm doing a set number. Instead of continuing with that exercise with like a brief break between sets, I'll take longer breaks and just aim for less movement. So I'll do like 1 set and then take a break. Instead of, I could do 3 sets, but I'll string the whole thing out to its longer, and cumulatively I get a better pump than if I just continued and started getting sloppy with repetitions.
Sure, sure. No, I definitely understand that. Well, so one of the other things that I wanted to bring up tonight, um, so again, given both of our backgrounds and our histories, I'm starting to see what I believe is a turn in the fitness industry, or at least I hope that it is. And I think that we can go through and we can find this depending upon how Hollywood goes. So, uh, like most people my age, and so Schwarzenegger to me was the be all and end all. He was the action hero of all action heroes. But since you're just a little bit older than me, so but now you grew up with Reg Park and
Right.
those guys. So I noticed something this summer. So we have had 3 tremendous superhero movies that came out this summer. So we had the Thunderbolts, we had Superman, and we had the Fantastic Four. And so now, again, this is not me jumping on and dogging on anything, but so whenever Schwarzenegger was coming up, director John Milius said, "Thank God for Arnold Schwarzenegger, because
Oh, yes.
if we wouldn't have had him, we would have had to have built him." And think about how. So I'm not saying that Conan the Barbarian got made because Schwarzenegger was there, but it probably wouldn't have gotten made if they wouldn't have had him, or it would have been it would have been a very different movie. But the difference is, though, here is Arnold coming from years of bodybuilding, decades of bodybuilding that he has gone through and built his physique. And if you go through and you look at individuals like Hugh Jackman looked amazing in Deadpool versus Wolverine. But part of the reason why he dropped out from that role, okay, so if you go back and you look at how Hugh Jackman looked in the first X-Men movie, it's I'm not saying that he looked bad, but he looked vastly different than what he did in Logan and what he did in Deadpool and Wolverine. Dave Bautista is a fantastic actor, and he has retired from the role of Drax in Guardians of the Galaxy for the best reason I've ever heard, where he was like, I'm getting older now, and Drax never wears a shirt. And it is tremendously difficult to maintain this size because he said, I'm getting older now. It's so hard for me to do. And Dave Bautista, he went through and he dropped a massive amount of weight, but he came back and he was like, I still weigh 240 pounds, but he was just so monstrous before. Monstrous, I mean that in a good way. I remember he did a movie with Jodie Foster, and he just completely dwarfed her because he was so big. And so the issue that I was coming across is that, so Hugh Jackman says, I'm going to drop out from being Wolverine because it's too hard to get into that level of shape. Again, it's too difficult. And I was just like, I need 5 minutes with the guy. Let me talk to him, because we love you as Wolverine, mostly because of what you do from the neck up. You don't need to be shirtless in these movies. I'd rather have a great actor with who can play that character properly, as opposed to someone who just has a body and can't act and won't portray the character the way that I imagine him from the comic books. But what we've seen is these guys who come bursting onto the scene and they completely change their physiques, but it's done in a very short amount of time.
Right.
And everyone is coming out and saying, so like Zac Efron. Zac Efron was by no means out of shape, because he does the Baywatch movie. So he's running around in a bathing suit the whole time. And so he's looking great. And then he does the Iron Claw, and he swells up massively and, packs on all this muscle. And he's telling everyone, don't do what I did. And I think so. And I know this is strange on a bodybuilding show, advocating against bodybuilding, because that's not what I'm doing. What I'm saying is, there are these people, the Schwarzeneggers, the Reg Parks, who had bodybuilding within their lifestyle. They were bodybuilders before they were actors. John Cena was a bodybuilder before he was an actor. But so there are these other people that are coming in. I'm not saying that they're cheating, but they have the best trainers, they have the best chefs, but they're coming in and they're developing this muscular frame over a very short period of
Yes.
time. And that's the part that I have the problem with. It's the short period of time. How did they get there? Did they get there through steroids? I don't know. But so what I want people to go through and embrace is this healthy lifestyle. This isn't something that's going to happen to you overnight. And bodybuilding is the hardest thing that I've ever been a part of. And so let me bring up a good example of someone who packed on a lot of muscle for a very specific reason. So that's my guy, Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill went through and developed his physique, and he went through 2 different training regimens, one of which was for Superman, which he said was very different because he played Superman in Man of Steel. But then he also went through and he put on a lot of weight for The Witcher. but he put on muscle for The Witcher because he said the stunts were very different in The Witcher than it was for in Superman. Because in Superman, it's all green screen. You're just going through and punching stuff. You're punching green blocks. And so it's not that big a deal. But in The Witcher, Henry Cavill, the king of the nerds, God bless him, he wanted to go through, he really wanted to do his own stunts. And so as he's explaining his training regimen, he's talking about the thoracic chain and all this, because he's going to go through and he's going to swing this sword. And it's not just going to be one take. He has to do this over and over again. And he has to hit that mark every single time. And if he doesn't, a stunt person gets hurt. So he's going through and he's developing these muscles for a purpose to go through. And so he can deliver that stunt consistently, time after time after time. And if he's doing that, that's where I'm just like, cool, man, you are awesome. Keep doing your thing. But I think it's that I absolutely love the bodybuilding lifestyle. It has improved my life so much. I can't, I mean, you let me come on here and talk about it. So I'm a huge advocate of it. But again, it is that short span that I'm afraid people are, I think they're going to try to find a way to do a shortcut to get that way. And it's the shortcut that's not healthy.
That's a very good point. In one of my groups on Facebook, I started looking at that. Um, my Age of Heroes Quest for Optimal Wellness group, and we looked at people who it chronicles the rise and fall, and these are people who are very well known and recognizable. And I delight in no person failing. I'm not pointing to say, haha, or look at what, but there's a lesson here for everybody that when you use shortcuts, sometimes the short-term effect might be beneficial to you, but the long-term effect is not always beneficial to you, especially when people find out that you're not as natural as you've been proclaiming yourself to be, and that the tenets and the practices and the exercises and the philosophies that you've been sharing with people are not true.
And I think that's kind of one of the things that we have to be very careful of, is that there's a lot of people out there who are personal trainers, but there's a pretty good chance that those people are personal trainers. They don't look the way that they look because they're personal trainers. Because of the way they look, that's the reason why they became personal trainers. They had, be it a genetic advantage, be it that they had, a greater history with it. But when they come along and they say, hey, buy my program and you too can look like this, that's where I have a problem with. That's where it feels a little charlatan-y to me, to go through and promote going, oh yeah, well, I look like this, and if you follow my program, you too will be one of these people. And that's where I think I have a real problem with it, just because they're being disingenuous with it.
And the use of the very difficult workout with very heavy weights, with chicken and broccoli and a little bit of brown rice. That I don't believe that anymore. I've seen so many exposés over time that even though the person might be doing that to some extent, that's not all that they're doing, from what type of information comes out later on. But that's useful to know because, like, I'm inspired by the bodybuilders of old, by the actors in the Sword and Sandal movies. Arnold played Conan, and Conan was my favorite fictional character. And it took 10 years for them to get Arnold to play it.
I mean, I certainly believe that, but but again, he had such a base for that. And so I think there are times where you go through and you see these guys who, and they go through, they put the weight on and then the weight comes back off. So this is more about that promotion of that healthy lifestyle that I want everyone to be a part of. And sometimes they go through and they can do, the clever camera angles. And I've heard, horror stories where so they go through, they get to this ridiculous body fat percentage, and then they go through and they do a series of photo shoots, and then they post them slowly all throughout the year. So everyone thinks that they're maintaining this physique throughout the entire year. And so that's where you just have to be really careful to watch for. You don't want to compare someone's highlight reel to your everyday,
Right.
experiences, because it's not going to be the same. But by going through and pay it, so in paying attention to what they're doing now. So again, to bring it all back around to, so those three superhero movies that we saw this summer, again, Fantastic Four, Superman, Thunderbolts. I'm not taking anything away from David Cornsweet. I'm not saying that he was fat or had a bad physique as Superman by any stretch of the imagination, but I've seen that movie twice now, and he never took his shirt off. And it's like so much of it is the suit. I mean, I'm sure he's a developed physique, but there was at no point where he's running around in a skimpy little pair of shorty shorts for everyone to see everything. So I think maybe we're kind of starting to see a turn, because I think too much of that curtain is being pulled back, and people are starting to see what's happening with all this. And it's, in a way, I'm not saying that bodybuilding is unhealthy, but that rapid, again, the shortcuts, the cheats, that's the stuff that's not healthy. And then you've got all these actors who are coming out and saying, don't do what I did, because they know to the day when they're going to go through and they're going to take their shirt off. And so they're training for what could be months for what they're going to shoot for one day. And
Right.
then they go back to eating the pasta. Then they go back to eating the pizza. So you can't go through and compare what you see. And I do this myself, and I have to catch myself going, okay, you can't, there's a difference between, is using it as motivation, but as opposed to going through and starving yourself or doing unhealthy things in order to obtain this physique that was developed through smoke and mirrors. So that's just the main thing. So maybe we're kind of starting to see a turn now, because, and so again, Fantastic Four, they're not taking their shirts off. And I think so. I think there's always a good time to go through and have that good muscle, like what Henry Cavill had for The Witcher. But so I think we're kind of starting to see that turn, and sometimes how Hollywood goes, the rest of the world will follow with it. But so again, um, it's just like you said, man, whenever we got started with this thing, it's, you have to have those indulgences. You have to be able to go through. You can't live your life 100% optimized 100% of the time, or you will go crazy. But what I have found is that results breed more results. And so the problem that I'm coming across in my journey is that if I was going to get someone started on a program, it would say, okay, well, how much alcohol do you drink? And how much pop do you drink? And because, I mean, back whenever I was working at this one place, I would have, a 20-ounce soda 3 times during my shift, one with each break and one with lunch. Well, that was like 1,000 calories that I was putting down. Now,
Right.
granted, I was up and moving, but so, but so how much beer are you drinking? And sometimes you can go through and you can see this dramatic turn just by going through and cutting out pop. What we
Cutting that
call,
out. Right.
yeah, just by cutting that out. Unfortunately, I don't have that option, because I don't have the vices in my life to shed in order to get to the frame that I want to get to. And again, I know that's like first world problems. Oh, he doesn't drink pop, so he's got to find somewhere else to cut his calories. But so by going through and making those little tiny changes, that can really make a world of difference. But then to go through and to get to this level, to this higher level of dedication, that's where I've got to be in the gym 7 days a week. But again, I'm very lucky that the job that I work is a 9 to 5. But one of the things that I forgot to mention is that, I mean, we are in the burr months now. Here in Oklahoma, it's still pretty hot. But so leaving out the house at 6 o'clock in the morning now, it's pretty friggin' dark out there. So it's like, okay, yeah, winter's on its way. But so sometimes that's kind of the hard part, is going out there in the dark. You're doing the things that people don't want to do. But this is just, it's a different level of lifestyle that you choose to adopt whenever you take on a program like this. But doing through that is nothing but beneficial. So I highly encourage everyone to go through and do it. But most importantly, I want people to do it safely. I want people to be healthy. And I don't want people to try to go through and take those dangerous shortcuts that could cause them, health problems later on in life.
Right. No, I agree with you 100%. And I'm finding as I get old that a lot of it is attitude. Like recently, I had a Age of Heroes Quest for Optimal Wellness table at our town's community night. And I hadn't been able to do one of those in quite a while, so I was glad to be back. It was challenging because the street is not flat. So navigating it with my back injuries, my Parkinson, was difficult. But some people knew who I was and recognized me and came over to talk. But some people had heard of Hercules being about, and they came up to me and asked me if I'm Hercules because that would be their guess. And some of the people wanted to take pictures, and the most often requested picture was to give them a bicep shot. Now,
Sure.
I'm nowhere near a place where I'm proud of my bicep shot. But that's what they wanted, so I gave it to them, and they seemed pretty happy with it. So a lot of it is attitude. I learned it through the movies with Nigel Green. He's an actor that played Hercules and Jason the Argonauts,
Okay.
and also with Alan Steele, who's also Sergio Chiani, and he was one of the Herculeses. He was by far not the bulkiest of the Herculeses, but he had such enthusiasm in playing the role that it carried out and shown through whatever it was he was doing. So I remember that, and I have enthusiasm in me, and also I have the attitude in me. So I was surprised with how far that took me on that day.
So you bring up a great point. Okay, so we we are going to be our own harshest critics,
Yes,
and I think it's difficult for us to see what others see because we're so focused on our own self-perceived flaws, and maybe these are flaws that most people wouldn't even recognize unless we go through and we point them out. And so one of the things that I try to discourage people from doing is to compare themselves to other people. It's not a healthy metric. We never know what someone else is going through. Sometimes it can be too much of a negative thing where if you look over and, oh, look at this guy, he's only doing this amount of weight, but we don't know, is he recovering from an injury? Is he on his deload week? Is he just, can he only be here for a little bit of time? Maybe this is his second workout of the day, so we never really know. And so it's not good to compare yourselves to people. So instead, what I compare myself to is more like a broad spectrum of a number. I try to imagine myself in amongst with 99 other people who are also my age. And so whenever I go through and yes, I go through and I do just a little bit of posing whenever I'm in the gym. But again, I'm looking for those weak spots. I'm looking for, what areas need to be improved. And so there are times where I will go through and I'll do that bicep pose, and I tell myself, dude, you're 50. You're 50, and think about all the people who aren't the ones who are in the gym, aren't the ones putting in the work day after day after day after day. And where would you be without all of this? And so, yeah,
right.
maybe you don't have maybe it's not the 21-inch biceps of someone who's half your age, but you're still going through and putting in the work. And so, yeah, I do believe, just like what you said, that attitude is everything. And going through and finding that right attitude, it means so much more. And so, thank you for saying that. Just because, I mean, if you are self-conscious about your body, how am I supposed to feel, about mine? And so if we're all self-conscious about
Yes,
our own body, and so, but if you can go through and put that behind you, but still go through and put in the work, I guarantee you on a long enough timeline, again, it goes back to what I talked about with rowing. Man, if you're doing 600 reps of anything, you are going to see results. It's just a matter of time. It may not be the results that you were expecting. It may not be in the time frame that you expected. But again, I think that's where, and again, this would lead us into a conversation we'd have to dedicate another hour. But it's the transformation that you go through is so much bigger than just the physical. And so going through and building up that confidence and making yourself healthier. And so it's going through and finding your why. Why do you want to go through and do this? And if it's just, well, because I want to attract the babes. All right. I mean, good luck. I hope it works. I hope it keeps you motivated. But then you're going to find out that if it doesn't work, then you're going to feel bad that you wasted all this time because it
You
didn't get you
learn
the results.
something.
Yeah, but but if you can go through, and if you're doing it for the right reasons, that's really all the motivation you need. And so again, but also, just to kind of tie it back into what we talked about earlier, you can be the most disciplined person, but if you don't have the capacity, don't beat yourself up. If you've got a kid that's less than 2 years old, they're going to take up a lot of your time. They're going to take up a lot of your sleep. So I understand then it's a little bit more difficult to get into the gym, and don't beat yourself up over that. Now, if you're going out and you're getting drunk on Friday night and you're too hungover to go to the gym on Saturday, I have no sympathy for you then. But so there are times where life is going to come along and it's going to jerk you around by the back of the neck, and you've got to decide what's important. But for me personally, I feel worse when I don't go to the gym. That's my happy place. That's kind of become my third place, which I know we don't have enough time. We'll throw that in for October.
Excellent.
But so for the third place, man, so because I know we're getting close on time. So the other thing that I found today, which I thought was absolutely fantastic, and after everything that has happened just within the last week, there's a gentleman by the name of Adam Pearce. Adam Pearce is currently serving as the general manager of Raw in the WWE. He is a former wrestler who is now, and so he's playing this role of this general manager. But I saw an interview with him, and so apparently on Instagram, either every day or somewhere on social media or whatever, he tries to put the message out every single day: love someone today. There's a lot of bad stuff going on right now, a lot of division, and it's easy to jump into and get lost in all of that. So what he's saying is love someone today. This morning, I'm up at the gym. I'm doing my rowing. I've got my headphones on, which the big giant screaming, "Leave me alone," headphones. I'm here to do my work. There's a guy walking out. He's dripping in sweat. He's done with his exercise for the day. And it was just a real quick moment between us, because he knew I wasn't going to be able to hear him, but there was just that, keep going, man. And I did the same while not breaking my stride with the rowing. So it is that third space, that second spot where it was this guy coming along saying, "Dude, I see you. You're putting in the good work." And I try to do that as much as I can whenever I see someone who's there on a regular basis. So it is a great place for us. If you find the right people, if you find your people amongst that space, they will go through, they'll prop you up, even if it's just that simple little fist bump, just that nod of appreciation, and that nod of going, "I see you, man, and you're putting in that good work." And so, I can't think of a better message to close on than just what Adam Pearce said, man. Love someone today. And it just as much, love other people, but also, man, love yourself, dude. I know it's hard out there, but I promise you, there are people that are out there that don't even know you, but they're rooting for you. And they want nothing but success for you, because I think you deserve it.
That's powerful. Thank you for sharing all those thoughts. I try to do the same with my daily blessings on Facebook. And now I started a new series of them called Be the Blessing. So instead of "May the universe bless you," it's like, why don't you go now and bless somebody else? And I keep the categories
Sure.
along the planets and the Greco-Roman gods that the planets are named after. And that's kind of like the structure to it. But it's general positive things, because we need positivity. And one of the things I've learned as I'm getting older is at the end of it all, when you're going to be in that bed and not able to get up or leave that bed, do you regret having spent the time doing this? And I found that for most of the things in my life, I would rather have done nothing else. So I'm happy that I did these things. I'm not going to lament the fact that they were lost minutes, hours, days, months, years, whatever, that this was something that I wanted to do, that I got satisfaction from. I started realizing that when my passion for sword and sorcery fiction movies, I met very few people in the course of my life that actually liked these movies or these books or these comics as much as I did. It was always a treat to encounter other people so you could discuss it. But I'd long since learned that most people are not going to understand it. So don't even try, to convince them or explain it to them. This was something that made sense to me, that I enjoyed, and that I didn't consider to be a waste of time. So as long as that was true, I'm content with that. Nobody else in the world needs to understand what it is that my passion is. And it's the same with muscle building. Although people like to work out and they want to be fit, very few people understand the discipline of using strength and progressive resistance to build up a body so that it's clay and you're the sculptor. And so it's okay. They don't have to understand it. I'm not preventing them from doing anything they like to do. I'm not conversing with them when they don't want to hear it and telling them things that are intrusive. I'm enjoying this. I find people I can discuss with and I discuss it. And we have other things we discuss too. Life is life. But I always look forward to our conversations because we have a lot of overlap in our interests. And you're a very thoughtful and generous person when it comes to sharing your experience. So that's always very valuable. I've learned a lot from talking to you each and every month.
Thank you very much for saying that, and completely reciprocal. Yes, you're absolutely right. Our Venn diagrams, they definitely tend to overlap, and so yeah. Thank you very much for again for a great conversation tonight. For letting me give this platform to go through and plug my book, but but also just to let me come on here and talk about something that I am very passionate about. And man, I promise you, like you were saying, I don't lament anything, even though I still wish, I wish I could get rid of this belly a little bit, and I'm working on it. I wish I was, could be a little bit more cut, and I'm working on it. But I don't regret any time that I've ever spent in the gym. I regret more when I miss going to the gym than when I do whenever I go there. And sometimes those days when you don't want to go and you have to kind of drag yourself up there, in a strange way, that's when you seem to have your best workouts, where it's just you feel like you could lift the whole gym when you didn't want to go half an hour before. So
Right.
this is something, it's changed my life only for the better, and it's taught me humility. It's taught me to reach back and help other people out. And it feels like right now, boy, that's kind of something that I think our society could use a little bit more of. Much like you said, not hey, if this is your thing, great. Maybe it's not for you. There are probably going to be some people that may read my book and go, "Yeah, I didn't really care for that thing," and that's okay.
That's
If it
okay.
wasn't
Yeah.
your book, yeah, all right. Maybe it'll find its way. You'll donate to someone else, and it may find their way to them, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, that was my book." So yeah, if you like it, fantastic. If not, it's not the end of the world. But yeah, but not in forcing other people to automatically like the stuff that you like. I think that's kind of important right now, and a lot of people should take a cue from that.
Yeah, I think so too, because a lot of people, there's a lot of ill will I've noticed when it comes to interests and people not sharing each other's interests and getting into all sorts of arguments or situations about something like that. I've also learned as I get older to be grateful for things and to not only cut other people slack, but to cut myself some slack too. Because I look at, despite my current challenges, I look at my life and most of it is blessed. Yes, there are challenges of all sorts, but everybody has challenges of all sorts. And these are mine right now. Um, but I look at the things that are right in my life, or that I'm very happy about or feel very good about. And who knows if I'd done anything differently, even something small, the pleasant things in my reality, the important things in my reality might not exist in the way that they're currently manifesting themselves. So everything, whether good or bad or indifferent, I consider them to be while the events are transpiring, they led to good things now. And every day I sit and think about not only what I can work on with myself, but what I'm content with. I can't make this any better than it already is, and I'm surprised by how many things in my life I find to be fine the way they are.
You're you're on the right path. You're on the right path, and thank you for going through and blazing that trail so that other people can follow behind you, and make their road a little bit easier. Because I think if once more people start to embrace that, yeah, the happier they're going to be.
May we all find our bliss, as Joseph Campbell used to say. Now, Whitaker, I'm very fortunate that we talk once a month and we can communicate by phone if we wanted to, or by Facebook if we want to, or by email if we wanted to. But a lot of people out there don't know you and they'd like to learn more about you. So where can they go to learn more about you?
So how you promote me on Facebook is probably actually the best way. If you go through and you want to purchase Of the Lantern, available now at Amazon. Oh, see, man, I got to get that blur is killing me. But so
Fix that.
yes. So Of the Lantern, available now at Amazon.com. If you go through that, they're going to have an author page that you'll be able to click on, and that's going to take you to the. So again, the comics that you mentioned, the graphic novels, if we're going to use the fancy term, that's the best way to go and find me. And really, Facebook is just about the only social media that I do. I'm on Reddit, but that's more of just kind of like an anonymous scrolling thing. So really, how you promote me with your page is probably the best way for people to get in contact with me.
I'm honored. And if you send me the link to the Amazon, I will lift the picture and we'll use it as the picture for today's show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can definitely do that.
So that'll be great because I'm a big fan of your writing, and I'm looking forward to re-exploring that whole dimension. I even set up some new shows where we could discuss your He-Man experience again and some of your other heroic ventures over the years in the comic book medium.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Well, thank you very much, Ryan. Always a pleasure, always an honor. And I look forward to our next conversation already.
Thank you very much. I do too. For everyone else, thank you very much for listening. Go love someone today.
Well said.